Unbiased, it's my startup. So at Unbiased, so what is Unbiased? So it's a transparent and trustworthy data platform for AI. We are building solutions which enable data economies for enterprises. So a bit of introduction about myself. So my name is Sukesh Tedla. I'm the chairman of Swedish Blockchain Association. And in addition to that, I'm also the CEO and founder of Unbiased. And I also do advisory and a bit of technical architecture for another startup as well, which is called Zeptagram. And I also do blockchain innovation and consulting as well. So I'm 26 years old. I've been in Sweden for almost 6 years now. I'm originally from India. I hope you can recognize that. So my journey with blockchain and AI started in the last 3 years. So today's presentation, I thought I'm not really sure like how familiar is the audience with the blockchain technology. So I thought of introducing you a bit to the blockchain technology, like very basics, and then also speak about the transparency and the core topic of today's. So let's get started. Our mission at Unbiased is to fight biased AI, fake news, and misinformation. So this is the mission we set forth 2 years back. It's me and my girlfriend who started the company. So back then when we started with the company, one of the biggest issues on the internet was fake news and misinformation. And we have seen an increase in the misinformation, and also after realizing that, we soon recognized that we are living in this internet bubble of information. Wherever you go on the internet, whether it's Google or YouTube or any social media platform, you are in that same bubble, which is basically classified by the algorithms. So when we started working on building solutions, sooner or later we realized that we need to use machine learning and AI. But in order to use machine learning and AI, once we get started into that, we face a lot of challenges ourselves. And that's when we realized there is a more fundamental problem on like the technology level rather than on the user level and the data level. So that's how we started Unbiased, and this is our mission today. So before going any further, I want to show this slide, show this graph, which kind of basically explains any thought process of anyone when it comes to new technology adoption, or whether it comes to any new learning something new, etc. So because we are going to discuss different stuff like blockchain, the new technologies like AI, transfer learning, and all that stuff. So I want you to be open-minded. So please ask me questions at the end of the presentation. So it's all new technology. So no one is going to be perfect, including myself. So excuse me if I say something wrong or represent something wrong. But we are here to learn, and we are here to share the knowledge. So please feel free to ask questions. So let's start with the introduction to blockchain technology. Before talking about blockchain, we have to understand why there is a need for blockchain technology. So I really like this picture when I talk about blockchain, or when I present about blockchain, I usually use this picture. This kind of depicts like the socio-economic situations that we live in different countries today. So where we have the banking systems, where we have the governments, but the normal people who are pretty much powerless in the society today. And this kind of depicts the need for blockchain technology as well, because back in 2008, when the financial crisis happened, one of the biggest reasons was the banking system and the lack of transparency in the banking system. So that's when kind of everything started with the blockchain technology. So someone, anonymous person or a group of people called Satoshi Nakamoto, they released a Bitcoin white paper talking about P2P transfer of digital assets or tokens or cryptocurrencies that you call today. And in my opinion, this is when like the start of decentralization movement started, and the new era of open source technology has took mainstream. So what exactly is blockchain? So we have today trusted environments where a trusted party is involved when doing a financial transaction, or just doing some kind of trade between a company, between two parties. So, or any e-commerce marketplaces, we always have a centralized trusted authority today, like whether it's a bank, whether it's a regulator, whether it's some certificate providers, etc. So at the end of the day, with the current systems that we have, we still have to trust someone to facilitate the process. When it comes to blockchain-based systems or applications, you have a trustless environment so that you can do P2P transactions, and the trust is ensured with the security of the network and using mathematics and cryptography. So let's see how it exactly works. So as I mentioned, like it's a block and chain, right? So you have blocks and you have a chain which are interlinked with one another. So each block has a unique hash. I think many are familiar with the cryptography or basic functions here. So when you pass a piece of data through an algorithm, it generates a hash which is unique for the data. So even though if you add a small, if you even change or include a space into the data, the hash of the data changes. So in that way, each and every block has a unique hash. Each block contains transactions of different events that happened during that time. And each block is interlinked. As you can see, the previous hash is interlinked with the next block's hash and so forth. So in that way, we are basically gluing together all the blocks in the chain. And these blocks itself are located in almost thousands of computers across, or thousands of servers across the world. So in that way, even though if a hacker or someone tries to hack one of the nodes, the network itself still rectifies and says, okay, this node is wrong. In that way, you have the security of the data and the transparency as well, because only the person who has the access to the private keys can create a transaction and so forth. And once the data is recorded, it's immutable. So you can't change, you can't go back and change something that you already have recorded. So that creates a lot of very good dynamics to enable transparency and trustworthiness. Another interesting topic about blockchain is smart contracts. I'm gonna introduce smart contracts in later of the presentation as well, but like briefly, like when you talk about a contract, it's between two parties, right? So whether it's people or organizations, any kind of contract. So whatever application you are using today, even including Zoom, for instance, you are signing some kind of contract with the organization, right? So each and every contract has certain rules and guidelines, and in the same way, smart contracts are basically designed to incorporate business logic into the algorithm or the code, so that basically when two parties are coming into an agreement, they can use smart contracts and basically come to that agreement, and which is much more secure and transparent, because each and every action that's happening in regards to the smart contract is being recorded on the blockchain. So at the end of the day, you have a complete provenance and transparency, and also the smart way of business logic being integrated into the code as well. So finally, briefly about different types of blockchains out there. So there are public blockchains, there are private blockchains, there are hybrid blockchains. So basically you put a blockchain into different categories based on who can write into the blockchain, who can create transactions, who can read the data from the blockchain, and so forth. So based on that, there are different types of blockchains out there. So let's talk about AI now. So this is what we are here about. So when I started my journey with AI a couple of years back, back then I was really kind of against AI, because I had this mindset from sci-fi movies of thinking that AI is going to destroy the world and all this kind of crazy stuff. So when I started actually learning about the technology myself, it really got me excited because of different kinds of innovations that are possible and how many problems it can solve in this world today. So so AI kind of is like an umbrella which covers machine learning, deep learning, and NLP. But also nowadays we are seeing something called transfer learning, for instance, which is becoming mainstream these days. Let's see. So when it comes to the age of AI that we live in right now, so one of the key essence of AI is the data, or like the key essential part of the AI is data. Data is like the fuel for the era of AI. So whatever algorithm you want to build, you need some kind of data in order to support it. Whether it's a deep learning model or NLP model or basic machine learning or simple classification or regression, whatever, you need data. Each and every scenario requires different kinds of data. Each and every application needs different levels of data and characteristics and so forth. So let's look into like the key problems of the AI and machine learning industry in general. So the algorithms, there is the saying, right? I think most of you who are here are familiar, I guess, like garbage in, garbage out. So if you're passing an unstructured data in a bad format, your algorithm is going to be in that way as well. So algorithms are only as good as the training data that you train that algorithm on. And if you have the poor data quality, your algorithm's performance is going to be poor as well. And in addition to that, there are a wide range of problems within the AI industry today. Like one of the biggest issues is bias. There are many scenarios, many examples that you can take where bias has caused different problems. I think one of the examples that comes to top of my mind is like the Amazon's HR recruitment algorithm, for instance. It was kind of discriminatory against women, so they had to rectify and train the model again with different kinds of data parameters and so forth. And the another biggest thing is the trust and transparency and fairness. So you built an algorithm, so why should people trust it? Or why should people think it's fair for everyone? Because the algorithms nowadays are used for recruitments, even in judicial processes to give in judicial processes in general, and also like in financial systems as well. So we shouldn't have any discriminatory processes, discriminatory actions with the algorithms. And another biggest issue is the transparency. So let's say you built an algorithm and you're trying to prove that it's trustworthy and so forth, but how can you really do that? How can you really say that you collected this data in a fair manner without any damaging any privacy policies or security policies in place with GDPR and so forth? So after doing all of that, it's going to take a lot of time and it's going to cost you quite a lot of money. So most of the developers out there that you see today or that we speak with, most of the time they don't really think of these issues like fairness or transparency in majority of the companies out there. And we are using these algorithms on a day-to-day basis, whether knowingly or unknowingly. So recently I saw this article. This was published in Wired in 2019, December. AI is biased. Here's how scientists are trying to fix it. So this is ImageNet dataset, which is kind of the holy grail of the convolution networks and image-related processing. So one of the statements that I found really interesting was the people building these data sets seem to have no idea what's in them, and they are starting to they put together a team right now to actually eliminate the bias or the ratio issues that these data sets have. And this data set has been used in many vision algorithms, and this was the basis for many computer vision algorithms. So people who built algorithms on top of this data set doesn't have any clue that this data set has issues, because this data set existed for almost a decade now, and now they found the issues after a decade. Just imagine how many algorithms were built using this data set to recognize people or faces or whatever related to computer vision. So another thing nowadays much popular in the AI industry is the NLP. With the announcements of transfer learning, with the technologies like BERT, for instance, which Google created back in 2018 and 2019, it just became super popular nowadays. And like, I think if you're within this AI industry bubble, you know that the latest announcements of GPT-3, which kind of like a text generator, so which is almost as real as possible. But many of these transfer learning algorithms or transformer models that we call, they are being implemented in different scenarios to facilitate legal, to understand legal agreements or to create legal policies and healthcare as well. So we asked this question to many of the developers, and one of, did you test bias related questions in transformer models? And most of the people are not even aware that these issues exist in these transformer models, because we actually put the models to test as well. You can do it yourself as well. You can go to a website called huggingface.com or .co, huggingface.co. I think you can write, I can write in the chat later on, where you can test out these models today. You can just type some kind of text and it will generate the next text. It's going to be, it can predict what you should type or what you're going to type. So oftentimes when you put like critical questions related to gender or race, it kind of is biased towards biased as well. So people should be sure when building these algorithms that their algorithms are not biased towards one side or another. So how can bias creep up in a machine learning pipeline? This is kind of like a general basic pipeline that you see today. So starting from collecting the data from various sources and labeling the data set to training it and iterating it, building a model, and then iterating this process. So in each and every step, we kind of have humans involved from different ethnicities, different genders, and different demographics. So each and every one of us have bias. We are biased, that's for sure. So when building these models and building these data sets, each one of us brings our own bias into these data sets unknowingly. So when these models are put to real life scenarios, these kind of those kind of amplify the inherent biases that it took when building these models. So one has to ensure that there are enough processes and frameworks in place so that their models or the applications that they are building are not biased towards people. So just to summarize the things that we discussed so far, so when it comes to the problems in the AI and machine learning industry, one of the biggest issues is the data privacy, fairness, and bias. And that's the first problem. So the second problem is access to the data sets. So, okay, I want to build this algorithm to satisfy a customer's need or to get this functionality, but where can I find these data sets that I need exactly that fits to my characteristics? There are open data sets, there are private data sets, and so forth. So many of the data sets are secured today because of the regulations, and most of the companies are not sure how to extract value from these data sets in a fair manner as well. And so, okay, let's say like now you have a data set that you found to build an algorithm, but you don't know who built this data set or what were the sources in building this data set, and you don't have a provenance at all. Like most of the open data sets that you find, They don't even mention like who built this data set, what were the characteristics, or how many people contributed to this data set if it was crowdsourced, for instance. So without having a data provenance that you can track over the time, it would be really hard to actually show that your model or application you are building is transparent and trustworthy. So let's see what are the potential solutions or like the things that are happening in the industry right now. So one of the biggest trends that we see is the marketplaces and data exchange frameworks, where many of the countries and the governments are working right now, especially in EU and also on the World Economic Forum. So they're trying to build something called a cross-border data exchange framework. And they're trying to build this kind of a white paper right now, and also a framework so that people in different countries can trade data or exchange data of people in different organizations as well. Because with more and more privacy guidelines and regulations these days, many countries and many applications are being limited to store data within that country. For instance, like with GDPR, you can't export the data outside Europe, for instance. And the same thing's happening with many other countries as well. It's same in China, it's now happening in India and also in US. So yeah, one has to have a framework because if each and every country or each and every continent has their own model, it would be really difficult for people to innovate or exchange ideas or information. So we need these kind of frameworks. And the other thing is bias, bias evaluation frameworks as well. So there is a lot of research that's done by a team at IBM and many open source developers. So anyone can check it out right now. It's called AI Fairness 360. Excuse me. And Google also implemented something similar to address the problem, something called what if tool. So you can search these and try them out. They're really super cool actually, because they kind of show you where the problem exists, but also kind of suggest you how to solve them as well. And the third biggest issue is the transparency and trust. So this is where, for instance, some of the platforms that we use or frameworks that we use today in building the algorithms or models, for instance, like TensorFlow is working on machine learning fairness model to kind of like show exactly different statistics related to a model and so forth. And I know I forgot to mention here, there is another open source community working called OpenMind, which is also working on decentralized frameworks currently to basically solve the same issues that I just described. So we spoke about a lot of things till now, but let me kind of explain like how we at our organization are trying to address this on a much more broader sense with the blockchain technology. So what we have today is a product called Unbiased Data Marketplace, which is a blockchain-based data collection and annotation engine to generate unbiased and diverse training data sets in real time, so that we can help out algorithms or the developers that are building these algorithms. So as we say, every algorithm needs quality training data, and which is trustworthy and transparent. So let me show you a simple workflow of our application that we are building right now. So let's say you are an enterprise or a developer who is interested in getting a data set. So you come to the platform, you specify the requirements, and the workforce from all over the world who matches your requirements can work on your data set. But at the same time, we have, at the same time, we can, in our marketplace, you also have the developers and researchers who are building the algorithms and deploying them on the Unbiased marketplace can you can take advantage of those algorithms as well and build your data sets in a much more efficient way and quality proof. So at the end of the day, in comparison to the existing solutions, what you get with this platform is that you're not only getting the data sets, but you also get like a authenticity proof certificate, which basically shows data provenance and so forth. And then you also have the insights and analytics related to your data set. But also with this human in the loop approach, we are also empowering people in different parts of the world as well. So let me show you the platform flow a bit. So let's say you wanted to build an algorithm related to computer vision. So you need a data set of, let's take simple example of classifying different kinds of cars, for instance. So it's like an image classification data set that you require. So you have this requirement today and you come to the platform, you follow the template and you follow the steps in the process, specify the requirements, and that's it. That's all you have to do. And basically starting from then, the workers from all over the world can work on these data sets, and you can basically track what's happening with your project, who is working on it, from which parts of the world, and are there real people, because that's one of the important questions as well. There are lots of bots in these platforms. So it's gonna basically look like this at the end of the day. So let's take one simple example here. So we have one picture of the cars which are being annotated, for instance. So you get like metadata of the results, but also you have a complete history and provenance. Okay, when was this task created? Who contributed to this task? Which workers? And when was this approved, and so forth. So these actions are documented on blockchain. So at the end of the day, you have a complete history, complete provenance of what happened with this particular data set. So that kind of also increases the value of the data set, because now anyone, let's say another company coming at a later stage and wanted to purchase your data set. So now you can clearly prove that these many people worked on it. These are the characteristics of this data set and so forth. So finally, you have this certificate. And this is something I got to know recently that even Google is working on a similar they're calling it I think data cards and model cards. So the data card basically describes the different characteristics of the data, including licenses, what was the purpose of that data set, who created the data set, kind of same what we are doing. But also model cards are basically the same way. What was the intention for this model? How was this model trained on, and so forth. But one of the unique things about using blockchain-based technology is that you can actually audit this information. So if you think of like the solution from Google, for instance, I can just write whatever I want and publish it. At the end of the day, no one can really argue what I said there. So you can't really trust that information in that sense. So in order to establish a complete transparency in the process, you should be able to go back in time and see what happened with this particular data set or model. So that's what's being achieved using blockchain technology in our case. So so far now we talked about the data collection and the data annotations. These are like the first steps in building algorithm or a model. So there are a lot of other steps. You have to clean the data. You need much more privacy related solutions. You need so there are much more new concepts coming these days with automated machine learning and training functionalities, or privacy focused training, or federated learning, for instance. So all of this new solutions or new technologies that are yet to become mainstream still are not addressing the fundamental issue of transparency and trust. So using a blockchain-based solution, basically, as we saw in this before slide here, so each and every action that's happening, starting from the creation of data request to actually getting the data set out, so each and every action is being documented on this blockchain. So you can go back in time and see what happened and so forth. So what we are working on is a complete end-to-end solution. So when building an algorithm, you need an end-to-end pipeline. So this is what we are trying to achieve with this framework. So today we have the first three solutions here, like the ground truth, human intelligence, but also the data collection part and the data annotations part and so forth. And now we are bringing much more additional frameworks related to synthetic data or bias related frameworks. I just got to know from my researcher that is working, like I just got to know like last week, that she managed to build a model right now which can just take the input data set and can predict what kind of biases does this data set have, potential biases, and how you can address it. Maybe by generating more synthetic data, or maybe you need much more data related to women or men or any other category and so forth. Okay, you have the data, but now what will you do? You need some kind of automated framework where you can evaluate against different algorithms and so forth. So that's where we bring in these additional frameworks from MLflow or TensorFlow Extended, so that we can you don't have to go to 10 different places to achieve what you are trying to achieve. You should be able to come to one platform and get all the things solved from there. And as we mentioned here, we are basically enabling the end-to-end flow with the complete audit trail of what happened. So starting from your idea to actually getting into production, you have the complete audit trail of what happened. So this can not only help you with building more trust among your consumers or among your users, but also maybe can potentially secure you from the future regulations that are possibly coming soon. So some of the use cases in building these kind of frameworks are, so you can achieve quite a lot of stuff. So for instance, you can build a crowdsourced data collection data set, which is focused on pollution data, for instance. So I have a friend who has been working on this application called Open Litter Map, which is, I think everyone can check it out right now, openlittermap.com. He's based in Ireland, so he created this platform a while back. So there are, I think, more than 30 or 40 countries, people from these countries are contributing in order to build a data set of litter on streets. So basically this data set can be used by smart city initiatives across different municipalities, and can optimize the cleaning processes in the cities. But at the same time, the people are being also incentivized as well for doing something good for their local community. So this is kind of the things that we want to achieve with this platform. But also, like, the whole process is transparent. He also built it using blockchain technology, so that now anyone can trust this data, and you can also validate that there aren't any duplicates of the data as well. And one other good examples, or one other trending topic right now within the data or big data and AI industry is the mobility sector, right? So more and more cars, with Tesla leading the charge, becoming autonomous. So autonomous and self-driving, right? So each and every car has huge amounts of data these days. Like, there are lots of cameras, lots of sensors. I'm actually part of this working group called MOBI, which is Mobility Open Blockchain Initiative, where we are working on establishing a standard for data marketplaces in the mobility sector. So how can you take advantage of the data that you are generating from a car and actually use the data from in a different parts of the world, or building some kind of model from it. One other cool idea or like solution that we thought of is also, like, there are lots of pollution sensors these days in each and every car. So what if we can crowdsource this data from the cars and aggregate it and use the data to actually identify the localized pollution and predict what's going to happen using AI. We can predict what's going to happen and how is the pollution and how you can divert the traffic and so forth. So there are lots of things that you can do once you have a good structured data which you can trust. And yeah, so this is what we are trying to achieve, and this is what you can achieve when you are working with the blockchain-based solution. I'm not going to go into services. So these are pretty straightforward industry services in the AI industry. So finally, let's discuss about the timing and need for these kind of applications or solutions and why you should really address it once again. So nowadays, like almost 50% of the world's population have a smartphone. So we use different applications, we interact with different algorithms each and every day. So one or the another day, maybe in near future, potentially, you will have to start understanding what's an AI or how does it work. And there are many initiatives across EU countries right now to educate people. For instance, we have an initiative in Sweden, leading by AI Innovation of Sweden, who is basically the target of this institution is that they have to educate 1 million Swedes by 2023 or 2025. So that's the target, because they believe that potentially in near future that AI might take over the jobs. So you have to, the workforce has to be adapted according to the requirements. And also global AI market is increasing at a rapid pace right now. Even though with Corona, like you might have seen many topics about AI algorithms predicting different kinds of what do you call different kinds of diagnosis, for instance. And I think if I remember correctly, like one of the algorithms built by some research university in US, I guess, like they were the first ones to actually decode the RNA sequences and predict what kind of diagnosis should people have. And when you have these kind of, and there might be lots of data sets out there now related to coronavirus, so you should be able to trust them. And I was talking with a healthcare facility, I think it was in Spain, a couple of months back in the March or April. They had lots of data about people, but they weren't sure like how they can share the data with others because of the privacy considerations and so forth. So if they had a diverse data, or if when you're trying to build these algorithms, you need much more diverse data to solve this crazy problem that we have right now. So yeah, this is what the data marketplaces can achieve. And once you have the transparency and trust in the data, you can be much more trustworthy in the results of that algorithm as well. And there are increasing concerns about fairness and transparency across different countries. I can take lots of examples. So one was in US. So I think it was in some state. And now there is a regulation that you have to get your algorithms audited if you're using algorithms to recruit people, so that the algorithms are not biased towards one group of people. So there are lots of things that are happening these days. And EU also launched their white paper, basically talking about transparency and trust. You can see the title of the white paper back in February. They launched their white paper. So this is one of the key things that we might see potential regulations for AI industry in the next 2 to 3 years. And many are moving towards data economies. So all the major companies are relying on data and they are extracting value from the data. So if you're an organization or if you are working towards AI-based or big data-based solutions, you have to identify how you can extract value from the data in a much more transparent and secure way, so that your audience or the users also feel are rewarded in the same fashion. And more circular economy and user-centric approaches these days. So you have to ensure that you give the rights to the user and you are transparent about how you're using their data to monetize your business and so forth. So all of this can be achieved using a blockchain-based smart contracts-based solutions. So I think that's pretty much it. finally, I just want to end the presentation and saying, like, in God we trust and all others bring data to the table. So thank you very much for giving me the opportunity, and I would be glad to take questions.